Alright, welcome to the video, guys. Today I'm going to be telling y'all my top 10 overrated NBA players in the league at this very moment. Now, this video does not mean that these players are not good, does not mean that these players do not have potential, or they're not all-star level players. I just think that they are overrated by the general media and also by the public of the NBA. I'm expecting to get a bunch of hate on this video. That's fine. Completely cool. This is just my personal opinion on the 10 most overrated players. So let's get into it right now. Alright, and coming in at the number 10 spot from the Los Angeles Lakers, we have Mr. Talen Horton-Tucker. There was a lot of trade proposals this offseason and this season for THT that I think were just absolutely ridiculous. I'm not sure if it was Lakers fans or who was putting THT at this level for trades. Like, don't get me wrong, I think Ben Simmons is a crybaby, and I still do think he has a lot of potential, but he's a crybaby. But there's no way THT and a bag of chips is going to get you Ben Simmons. The amount of trade assets and things that the Lakers were looking for from THT is absolutely ridiculous, and I think that he's overrated for that exact reason. I don't think he's a terrible player. His shooting's a little inconsistent. He has good games, he has bad games, but I definitely don't think that he is as big of a package as the media was trying to put him as, saying that the Lakers could possibly get a Ben Simmons type deal out of him. I never saw that, never saw the potential there. I think that he'll be a decent role player, decent at best. I don't think he'll be a superstar ever. And yeah, I just think THC is super overrated. Alright, and coming in at number 9, personally I think this could be one of, if not the most controversial picks on my list. I do have quite a few of them. I'm going to go against a lot of what the general media and general public think. But I think Rudy Gobert is super overrated. I think the fact that in the regular season, yes, Rudy Gobert is a great player. He'll give you good stats, amazing defense. I think his defense is a little overrated at times. Interior defender, of course, great defense. Perimeter defense, that's another thing. I do not think he's a great perimeter defender, and nor do I think he'll ever be a good perimeter defender. I think that's actually a huge problem with him in the playoffs. And he's also a liability on offense come playoff time. And I don't know. I saw him in MVP conversations earlier in the year, and I just don't think he deserves to be in that conversation for MVP or anything like that, for that matter. Defensive player of the year, sure, I'll give him that. Interior defense, he's amazing at it. He's great in the paint, interior defense. Besides that, I just don't think he has a good enough offensive game to be an all-NBA type player, and that's just my opinion. And coming in at number 8, this is probably the most controversial one on my list. We have Jason Tatum. The reason I have Jason Tatum here on this list is kind of not fair to him, but more so because of his teammate Jaylen Brown. I think Jason Tatum is viewed as the number 1 option and the number 1 player on the Boston Celtics, when in reality I don't believe that's the case. I believe Jaylen Brown gets the harder defensive assignment. He has just as much, if not more, offensive responsibility as Jason Tatum. And if I'm taking a player in the clutch on the Celtics, I'm taking Jaylen Brown over Jason Tatum. Now, that can change in the future, but that's just how I feel. Now, Jason Tatum is an all-NBA player, yes. But the reason I have him as low as I have him, and why he's even in the top overrated players, is people view him as the best player on the Celtics. I do not view him as the best player on the Celtics. If I am going against the Celtics, I am game planning against Jaylen Brown. Tatum can beat you on a nightly basis. He can. But I just feel like Jaylen Brown is more consistent than Jason Tatum. And that's just my opinion. I know most people disagree with me on that. but I really feel like Jaylen Brown is just as good, if not better, than Jason Tatum. And that's just my opinion. All right, and at the number 7 position, I have Mr. Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal, if this was Bradley Beal of old, Bradley Beal from previous seasons, he would not be on this list, nor would he be this high on this list. But this isn't Bradley Beal of previous years. And all I have to say is I have not liked his play this year whatsoever. He's shooting very inconsistent. I can't tell if he's hurt or what it is, but he's not playing good. I mean, he's playing better facilitating-wise. Scoring-wise, he's not playing that good, and he's not leading his team to wins. If anything, Kyle Kuzma is leading the Washington Wizards this year, and I just think that's unacceptable. I will have another Wizard on this list later. Just you wait. I have another one on here because I think that both of them are super overrated players, and they could prove me wrong. I'm not saying any of these players on this list can't prove me wrong. I just personally don't think Bradley Beal can lead a team to anything. He would have to be a second or third option, and I think people view him as a number 1 option, and I just don't think that he's that. I don't think he's good enough to be a number 1 option on a championship team. I don't think he's good enough to be a number 2 option on a championship team unless he's around a player like Giannis or Joel Embiid. Like all NBA type players. I just don't think he's good enough to compete, and that's my personal opinion. All right, now we get into the good ones. And at number 6, we have from the LA Lakers, Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis this past season got injured. But even before his injuries, I feel like his play was a lot lower than people expected, and the reason I'm putting him on this overrated list is he was just, and I mean just, a season or two ago, which was a year ago because of COVID, compared to Giannis Antetokounmpo, LeBron James. People were saying that he's better than LeBron on his own team, and they were comparing him to Joel Embiid, and I think it's hilarious looking at those now because I personally feel like Anthony Davis is regressing. His prime was super short, and I feel like he's not a top 10 player like people say he is. I really do not view him as a top 10 player. He was a season or two ago, but his play has dipped significantly. Maybe he can turn it back up next season when he comes back, or in the play-in games and the playoffs, but I don't see it happening. I personally don't think Anthony Davis is going to do anything this season, and I find him overrated. But yeah, let's go on to number 5. All right, and coming in at that number 5 spot is one of our league leaders in points per game. Now, there are multiple reasons I think Trae Young is overrated. Multiple reasons. The main one being his defense. I view his defense as absolutely atrocious. The fact that he's viewed as a top 3 point guard, in my opinion, I just think that's blasphemy with how bad of a defender Trae Young really is. I personally don't think you can be a top 3, top 5 point guard, of that matter, with the terrible defense that Trae Young has. I'm honestly surprised defenses don't try and attack Trae Young more than they do, because he's terrible on the pick and roll defense. He's tiny. He's super easy to put it back to the basket on, and yeah, I just think he's extremely overrated for that. I also think that the Hawks as a whole are overrated as a team. I think that this season really shows how much of a fluke last season really was. I always thought it was a fluke. But I'm glad now that some people are noticing that it's a fluke. But they're not blaming Trae, and I don't think that he's getting enough of the hate for it. I really don't. I think that he deserves more criticism. He's played almost every game, and their team's basically healthy. They're missing like 1 or 2 players. Their team's been more healthy than most. His defense is just atrocious, and that's what's been causing them losses. Just absolutely atrocious. But yeah, that's my number 5. All right, and at the number 4 position, we have Mr. Zion Williamson himself, the number 1 draft pick from a couple years ago. Man, it was hard to put this on the list because I just want to see this guy succeed. But, man, at this point, I got to concede. I think Ja Morant was a better overall pick. I think the Grizzlies ended up winning with that 2nd draft pick over the Pelicans. Zion's too injury prone. His weight really does scare me. It scares me. He reminds me a lot of Greg Oden, and that scares the shit out of me for things to come for Zion Williamson. If it weren't for injuries, I don't think he'd be on this list. I think he'd be a great player, but he's injured. He's always injured. I don't remember a time he's been in the NBA where he's had, like, I would say a 40-game stretch where he's played every game. I don't remember a stretch of that at all through his entire NBA career. And Ja Morant is just dominating the NBA right now. MVP caliber player right now. And I think it's just safe to say that Zion is a little overrated. And I'm not calling him a bust because he's not a bust. He's a great player. But I think he's a little overrated for where he went in the draft, and I also think he's a little overrated by the NBA media. And that's my personal opinion, especially with the injuries. Man, people are going to hate me for this one, but I just got to be real with you. James Harden is so overrated. James Harden is one of the most overrated players I have ever seen in my entire life. This man lets fouls dictate his entire game. Now, he's picked it up a little bit with the Sixers. He could prove me wrong these playoffs with Joel Embiid. But at the moment, I have James Harden at number 3. I have never seen a rule change affect a player's play as much as I have James Harden. He has played a lot better these last couple weeks, yes. But is it going to be sustainable and is it going to be consistent is the question. With Joel Embiid, I think this will help him a lot. And if they do not win a ring this year, I think that this just shows how overrated James Harden is. James Harden was viewed as a top 5 player in the NBA and has been viewed countless times as the best scorer of all time. Not just this season or any season, of all time. I've heard multiple analysts say that. Multiple people in the comment section saying he's the best scorer of all time. It's time for James Harden to prove it in the postseason. Now, if he wins this finals this year, I will not only take him off of this list, but I will never put him on a list ever again. Genuinely, these playoffs are the most important playoffs in James Harden's entire career. He finally has the pieces around him. He has the big man he's never had. This is the time where he has to prove himself, and he can't choke in the playoffs. And he can't let free throws dictate his game. We will see this postseason if James Harden has what it takes to get off of this list. He's one of the few players I think that is on this list that has a chance to actually get off of this list. Let's see what he can do this postseason, because I hate James Harden, so I can't say I'm rooting for him. But I don't know if he can do it, man. We'll see. And at number 2, we have Mr. Andrew Wiggins, the starting small forward for the Warriors, who also, for whatever reason, started in the All-Star game, which is ridiculous. I do not understand that, and I also don't understand how he was a All-Star to begin with. He's been having a great season, don't get me wrong. I'm really happy to see him thriving on a team. He did not fit in Minnesota. It's good to see him on a different team where he's actually getting the reps he deserves. But him being an all-star with an 18-4-3 stat line, that's just ridiculous. Now, if he was towards the end of the bench for the all-stars, that would have been one thing. I would have been like, okay, you know what? Warriors fans are crazy. Sure, I can let it slide. But the fact that Andrew Wiggins was a all-star starter is insane to me. There's so many players that got snubbed from being an all-star starter. I mean, Hell, Devin Booker should have started over him. CP3, I mean, those are guards, but still, I think that if Andrew Wiggins is starting, they should change the rules for the All-Star game, because personally, I don't think Andrew Wiggins deserved to start. It's even controversial for him being an All-Star, let alone starter. So the fact that he was an All-Star starter is insane to me, with only averaging 18 points per game. But yeah, no, I think Andrew Wiggins is super overrated, and that's probably because of all the Warriors fans. But yeah, I think he's super overrated. And at number 1, we have Mr. Kristaps Porzingis, the unicorn, the most overrated player in the league. I have been hearing comparisons for years of people comparing him to Dirk Nowitzki, saying that he is at his peak, could be German Jesus, and I just absolutely blasphemy, ridiculous. He's way too injury prone, and yes, I do contribute injuries to players, and I know that might not be fair, but I mean, they're getting paid millions of dollars, so if you're getting paid millions of dollars and you can't be on the court, whether that be injuries, whatever it is, I feel like we should be able to rate you on that. And Kristaps, his availability is always a question. The people he's compared to is just insane to me. I don't think he could be a 1, 2, or a 3 option. I would say max a 4 option for a championship team. The fact that teams still think he's a 1 or 2 option is insane to me. I really don't think he's a 2 or a 3 option, to be honest with you. I think he's a 4th option. I mean, it just goes to show the Mavericks, a couple games of getting rid of Kristaps Porzingis, they're playing just as good as they were with Porzingis. And that they added players that at the time looked like scrubs compared to Porzingis stat-wise. And they've came to Dallas and they've absolutely shined. And it's just showing how overrated Kristaps Porzingis truly is. And I 100% think he is the most overrated player in the NBA. And if you don't agree with me, that's okay. But yeah, without further ado, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you guys disagree with anything on this list, let me know. Make sure to leave your hate comments. I'll greatly appreciate those. And make sure to tell me who you think your top 10 most overrated players are out of any of them. That didn't make sense. But yeah, anyways, I'll talk to y'all later. I'll be making more videos like this. I'll do top 10 underrated video if you guys want me to. But yeah, I'll catch y'all later, and peace out.